Adoptions have always been rare. According to the statistics from Joe Carter, in 2002 in the United States, only 600,000 women between the ages of 18 and 44 had ever adopted a child. Men were a little bit better, with 1.3 million men between the ages of 18 and 44 having ever adopted a child, but this was usually due to the fact that men are more likely to adopt their stepchildren during marriage. Those numbers, though, were basically cut in half between the years of 2011 and 2013, with only 300,000 women having ever adopted a child and 700,000 men having ever adopted a child. International adoption, though, is even more rare. There was a huge boom in international adoptions in the early 2000s due to celebrities such as Angelina Jolie and Madonna adopting children from overseas. But towards the late 2000s, international adoption numbers also plummeted by about 50%. What makes international adoption so rare? And what problems are faced within each country that partake in international adoptions? I hope to be able to provide you all with some answers to these questions by the end of this presentation. International adoption gives a way to create relationships with other countries since the adoption is taking place between two different countries. There are many different adoption laws and regulations that have been established because of the relationships that had to be built in order to produce an effective and efficient adoption process between the countries. I think that Laura Biggs says it best in her book titled International Adoption, Global Inequalities and the Circulation of Children, when she says, adoption opens a window into the relations between nations, inequalities between rich and poor within nations, the history of race and racialization since the end of slavery in Europe's colonies and the United States, and relationships between indigenous and non-indigenous groups. However, not everything revealed about these relationships is sunshine and flowers. China-US adoptions currently constitute the largest transnational movement of adopted children when looking at it from the United States point of view. However, in her book titled Transnational Adoption, A Cultural Economy of Race, Gender, and Kinship, Sarah Darrow makes an important statement when she says, it is a process inflected by the movement of children through and across uneven racial, national, class, and gender spaces. These relationships of power are seen, heard, felt, narrated, and even smelled in the practices through which children, the vast majority of them girls, are abandoned and then moved from intermediary care in Chinese welfare institutions to adoptive families in the United States, the vast majority of them being white, well-educated, and relatively well-off. These children, in a way, are getting ripped away from their culture without ever truly understanding it, which can cause a lot of problems later on, like not feeling like they belong or getting made fun of. Another major country where children have been adopted from the U.S. or to the U.S. is different countries in Africa. A major one is Ethiopia. According to Peter Selman in his journal article titled The Movement of Children for International Adoption, Development and Trends in Receiving States and States of Origin, adopting Ethiopian children became more popular around 2004 following Angelina Jolie's celebrity's adoption of an Ethiopian child. Most people, like Angelina Jolie, are commended when they adopt internationally. Adopting internationally is extremely expensive, so most people that can afford to adopt internationally are white, well-educated, and have a lot of money. They are looked upon as heroes of the situation because they have removed a child from a horrible situation. This is known as the white savior complex, which is defined by the Urban Dictionary as Western people going to fix the problems of struggling nations or people of color without understanding their history, needs, or the region's current state of affairs. According to Amanda Machado, white savior complex has been ingrained in our society through film, school, foreign policy, and stories about traveling and volunteering abroad. Finally, one last thing that is blindly ignored is the ignorance that people have who are internationally adopting. A lot of people don't know about the shady dealings and bad things that are associated with international adoption. In India, small children are kidnapped and then sold to different orphanages to be sold overseas to waiting parents seeking to adopt a child. And these children are literally taken from their homes where their parents want to love and care for them to be sold to another family for someone else to make a profit. Not many people know about this in relation to international adoption, because according to Scott Carney in his article titled Meet the Parents, The Dark Side of Overseas Adoption, most international adoptions are closed, meaning the birth parents have no guaranteed right to contact their child, and the confidentiality of the process makes it difficult to track the kids who may have been adopted under false pretenses. So people assume that there is never a need to investigate further because everything is signed away and taken care of for you. Transnational adoption, or international adoption, emerged out of war, but has become a significant way for people to form a family when they cannot have children of their own. And don't get me wrong, I think that it is extremely important to adopt children, not only within a country, but also adopting children from outside of the country. According to Femi Jufer and Wendy Tiemann in their article titled Being Adopted, Internationally Adopted Children's Interests and Feelings, too many kids go through the foster system and grow up in an orphanage, and that takes a toll on a child's development and the way that they interact with people. It's truly unfortunate that so many children are put through the foster system and have to be put up for adoption. However, on the flip side, when adopting internationally, it is important to truly think about the decision. A person shouldn't adopt a child from overseas to try and be a hero. A person shouldn't adopt a child from overseas without proper information about the orphanage that they are from and the details about where the child comes from. A person should make sure that when adopting a child from overseas that they take into account that the child will be from a different ethnicity and culture and that should not be ignored in their upbringing. International adoption is a hard subject to tackle because of all of the risks and gray areas involved. I think that's why international adoptions have been declining in recent years. But because of international adoption, cultures can be brought together, and children can be given a second chance at life. Thank you.